Hi everyone, welcome back to another video in the Web Security Academy series. In today's video, we'll be covering lab number 2 in the Access Control Vulnerabilities module titled Unprotected Admin Functionality with Unpredictable URL. Alright, before we continue with the video, I'd like to announce that this video is part of a course that I offer on my academy. Now you might be wondering, why would I buy a course that is made available for free on YouTube? Well, there are 4 reasons why you might want to do that. Number 1 is that you gain early access to recorded material. As soon as I record new videos, I make them available through my course right away, whereas on YouTube, they'll only be released on a weekly schedule. Reason number 2 is that you gain access to a Discord channel where you can ask questions. The Discord channel is divided into topics that we cover in the course, and if you run into any issues, you get to ask questions about anything related to the course material. Reason number 3 is that you no longer have to deal with YouTube ads or sponsor messages. And last but not least, reason number 4 is you get to support me. Any revenue generated from this course will go back into maintaining the academy and creating more videos and courses that will be made available for free on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested in buying the course, make sure to check out the link in the description. And that is it. Let's go back to our video. If you do not have an account on the Web Security Academy, you can get one by visiting the URL portswigger.net/websecurity and clicking on the sign up button. I already have an account and I am logged in, so to access the exercise, I'm going to click on Academy, go down, select the learning path, go down, select Access Control, go down one more time, and then select lab number 2 titled Unprotected Admin Functionality with Unpredictable URL. Alright, let's get started. This lab has an unprotected admin panel. It's located at an unpredictable location, but the location is disclosed somewhere in the application. Solve the lab by accessing the admin panel and using it to delete the user Carlos. Okay, so our target goal over here is to find the admin panel, which is in an unpredictable location, so we can't brute force it. However, it is disclosed somewhere in the application, so we're going to have to find out where that location is. And then once we have access to the admin panel, we're going to try and delete the user Carlos. Okay, let's get started. While that loads up, we're going to open up Burp. So I'm using the integrated browser or the inbuilt browser in Burp, and that's why I don't need to set my Foxy proxy extension. My requests are already all going through my Burp proxy. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is check if there's a robots file. So that's essentially just a text file with instructions for search engine crawlers. Sometimes it does disclose certain locations that are not available directly in the application. There isn't one, so that was a dead end. The next thing that I'm going to do is just load the home page and then view the source code to see if there's any leftover comments or JavaScript that was left by developers that could potentially tell us where the admin panel is. And you could see over here we've got JavaScript, and it defines certain logic for admin functionality. And you could see over here if the user is an admin, so if that's set to true, then it goes into this logic right over here, which says the admin directory is this one right over here. So let's copy that. And let's see if that gives us access to the admin panel, because sometimes there's leftover code that doesn't really work in production. And so we can't be sure until we test it. And here we go. So we have access to the admin panel without having to log in. So there is an authentication and an access control vulnerability right over here that allows us to just directly access the admin panel if we knew the URL of the admin panel. So the next thing is to delete the Carlos user. And here we go. It says, congratulations, you solved the lab. So we successfully completed the exercise by manually exploiting the access control and authentication vulnerability that allowed us to access the admin panel by simply knowing the endpoint that accesses the admin panel. All right, the next step is to script the exercise. If you're new to the channel and don't know why we're scripting it, it's essentially because at some point in your pen testing career, you're going to have to write scripts. And so I always script all my exploits just so that you could start learning how to script in Python. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is import the requests library, which essentially allows us to perform HTTP requests. Next, I'm going to import the sys library so that we could get stuff from the command line. And then I'm going to import the URL lib3 library. I'm also going to import Beautiful Soup, so BS4 from beautiful soup. That's going to allow us to parse the code, and same goes with the RE library, which is going to allow us to perform certain regex in the application when we're parsing the source code of the responses of the requests that we make. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is suppress certificate warnings, so disable warnings URL lib3 dot exceptions dot insecure request warning. And then I'm going to set my proxy setting. So what that does is it says my proxy is set to so-and-so IP address with so-and-so port. And the reason I do that is because I always like to pass my requests in burp, and that helps me with debugging the script in case something goes wrong or the script doesn't work as intended. So 127.0.0.1 and then on 8080. And same goes for HTTPS. Okay, this looks good. Next, we're going to say if name is equal to main, then call the main method. And we're going to write up the main method right now. So def main. And we're going to say if the length of the command line arguments is not equal to 2, then print error instructions. So we're going to say the usage instruction over here is the name of the program, which we're going to take from the command line, and then the URL, because the user doesn't know how to run the program if they don't put in 2 arguments, and so we're just helping the user out with certain instructions when they run it incorrectly. Okay, and that would be the name of the program. And then we're also going to print out an example just so that it's absolutely clear how to run the program. So it's example, name of the program, and then let's say the URL is example.com. And let's pass the name of the program right over here. Okay, and then we're going to exit this script because the user ran it incorrectly. And I have an error right over here, so it's print. Okay, so that's what happens if the user runs the program incorrectly. Now let's assume the user ran it correctly. What we're going to do is we're going to take the second argument, so sys.argv, and we're going to set it to the variable URL, and then we're going to print deleting Carlos user. And the function that is going to be responsible for deleting the user is going to be called delete user URL. Okay, this looks good. Let's save it. And let's start writing the delete user function. So def delete user, and it takes in the URL. And over here, we're going to apply the logic for deleting a user. But before we do that, we need to understand exactly how the requests work in the application. So notice over here, when we're visiting the admin page, if we hit enter, it timed out. So let's try it again. Okay, it loaded. So if we view the page source right over here, you could see over here, that's the admin endpoint. Let's visit that and see the request that is made when we visit that. Okay, so notice over here, it's a GET request, so that's going to be important when we're writing our script. Let's send it to repeater. Hit send. Okay, so also another thing to notice over here is that it has a session cookie that it's assigned in the request. So let's delete that and see if it matters if the session cookie is there. And it does. So if there isn't a session cookie, then you get a 404 response, which is not found. So it's important that we have that session cookie in our script for our script to work. So the next thing we need to find out is when is this session cookie set. So if we go back to the proxy and we go over here, it doesn't look like in the response we have a session cookie. So let's go to this one right over here, and here we go. So when you visit the main page of the application automatically sets this session cookie for you. So what we're going to need to do in this script is first visit the main page of the application, extract the cookie from the response, and then use that cookie in order to perform this request right over here to visit the admin panel. Now, once we could visit the admin panel using this session cookie, then we could delete the user Carlos. And that's the logic we're going to implement over here. So the first request we're going to make is to the main page of the application. So request.get, it takes in the URL of the application. We're going to set verify to false because I don't want to verify TLS certificates. And then I'm going to set proxies to proxies. And the next thing that I'm going to do is now retrieve the session cookie from the response of this request right over here. And the way to do that is just create a variable. So let's say session cookie. And then say R, which is this one right over here, dot cookies, dot get dictionary. So the dictionary of cookies, and then get the cookie that is named session. So that would be this cookie right over here. So it's going to make this request, and then it's going to look at the response over here and then get the cookie value of the cookie that is named session. Okay, this looks good. Now that we have the session cookie, we could perform the request that is used to delete the user Carlos. So first thing we're going to do actually is retrieve the admin panel. So remember, we don't actually know the admin path. We need to retrieve it from the source code. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use soup, or beautiful soup, in order to parse the request. So we're going to say the request.text, and we're going to set the parser at LXML, which means just HTML and XML. And then we're going to try and find all the instances in the client-side source code that have the string /admin in them. So let's say instances, and then we're going to say soup.find, and again the text is RE, so that's for regex.compile. And we're going to say find all the instances in the application that have the string admin dash in it. And the reason we're saying admin dash is because if we go back over here and we click view page source, we're trying to extract this string over here. And so we're looking at this entire source code over here to find the string right over here. And that's what this does over here. Now, before we continue with the program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print admin instances and see what I get. So let's save this and then go to terminal, new terminal, and say Python 3 access control lab 02, and we need the URL of our application. So let's copy that and put it in right here. Hit enter, and it says we've got an invalid syntax error. Oh, and it's right over here. It's from BS4 import beautiful soup. Okay, let's clear this and run it again. And here we go. So admin instances over here is equal to this entire string right over here, because although this seems like it's different lines in the source code, it's actually all written in one line, and so it'll always output this entire thing, but we're actually just looking for this specific string over here. And so we're going to have to apply a bit of regex in order to extract this substring from this entire string right over here. And so to do that, let's remove our print statement. And we're going to say admin path is equal to re.search, And so we're searching for a substring of the following strings. And so we're going to search for a substring that starts with this. So let's copy this and ends with this. So a single quote. And the way to do that is we're going to say, so a string that starts with this set of characters, and then any number of strings, so dot star, so we're just using regex right now, and then we want it to end with this specific character, which is a single quote. The string that we want to search through is admin instances. So what it's going to do is it's going to apply this regex on the string admin instances and see what it could pull out of that. And the regex that we're applying is match on this specific set of characters, and then match on all the characters after this specific set of characters, and then only end it when you reach the single quote. And so it's going to match on this, and then it's only going to end it when you reach the single quote. And so it's what's between those two, which is this right over here. It's a bit complicated, so I hope that kind of makes sense. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to output the first instance of that, because there's only going to be really one instance. And so we're going to say dot group one. Okay, so again, just to confirm that this is working correctly, we're going to print admin path. Let's save it and see if it works. And here we go. Okay, so now we're correctly extracting the endpoint for the admin user. All right, this looks good. The next step right now is to delete the Carlos user. So let's add a comment over here. Now, we said in order to delete a user, we needed two things. We needed the session cookie, and then we also needed the path to the admin panel. And so we have both, which means that we should be able to delete the user right now. And the way to do that is to first set the cookies in the request. So we're going to say the cookies are set to session. So that's the name of the cookie. And the value of the cookie is what we extracted from over here. So session cookie. And then I'm going to say delete Carlos URL. So the URL to delete the Carlos user, that's going to be URL. So the main URL plus the admin path that we just extracted. And then also we need the exact parameters in order to delete the Carlos user. So to find that out, let's just go to the admin panel, copy that, hit enter, and then let's right click inspect. And here we go. So that's the exact path to delete the Carlos user. So let's copy that. And we're not going to need the whole thing because we're extracting a portion of it. Doesn't look like it copied correctly. And it deleted my user, which is not great because I needed to delete the user in the script. But that's okay because it's going to timeout and then we could delete it again. If we go back over here, this is the request that it's making. So we're going to copy this part of the URL over here. And this tells it to delete the user Carlos. So let's copy that and put it in here. The next thing we're going to do is perform the request. So we're going to say request. And we're going to use the get method because this is a get request. And then we're going to say the URL is delete Carlos URL. The cookies are set to the cookies variable, which is this one right over here where we set the session cookie. We're going to set verify to be equal to false because we don't want to verify TLS certificates. And then we're going to set proxies to be equal to proxies. And now we're going to say if the status code of this request right over here, so status code is equal to 200, so you don't get like a 404 message. That means you've successfully deleted the Carlos user. And if you get any other status code, then we're going to print deletion failed. And exiting script. And we're going to exit the program because it failed. Okay, this looks good. So if we go back to the entire script and we summarize it, okay, so essentially over here, what happens is that it calls the main method. In the main method, if you don't run it correctly, it outputs the usage instructions. If you do run it correctly, it'll take the second command line argument and it'll set it to the variable URL. It'll print the statement right over here, and then it'll call the delete user function. Now, in the delete user function, it performs 3 items. So the first one is that it tries to retrieve the session cookie from the main page. And so you could see over here, we're performing a GET request to the main page, and then we're retrieving the session cookie. The next step is to look at the response of the main page and retrieve the admin path, and that's what we're doing over here. Now that we have the session cookie and the admin path, we have everything that we need to delete the Carlos user. So you can see over here, we're performing the GET request that deletes the Carlos user. If we get a 200 OK response code, then we've successfully deleted the Carlos user. If we don't get a 200 OK response code, that means the deletion failed, and then we exit the script. All right, let's run this script to see if it deletes the Carlos user. First thing we're going to do is just see if this timed out, and I hope it did. Awesome. So I needed it to time out because I need a fresh instance so that I could properly delete the Carlos user. So again, let's access the lab and generate a fresh instance. And while that runs, let's clear this and remove the URL and grab the fresh URL. Okay, let's put that in here. And if we look at burp, we're going to run the script and we should see the requests in burp because we pass all of our requests in burp. Okay, that is not running correctly. Okay, so the program ended for some reason. And it's because we didn't save it. So let's save it. And let's clear one more time and hit enter. And here we go. It says it successfully deleted the Carlos user. If we look at the request that it made, the first thing it did is make a request to the main page, and then it extracted the session cookie from there. And then it used the session cookie and the admin path that it extracted in order to delete the Carlos user. From there, it got a 302 response, which led to a 200 OK response. And so the script ran correctly. All right, and if you look over here, it says, congratulations, you solved the lab. Let's go back to burp and see if we actually did delete the user Carlos. Let's copy that and put it right in here. Hit enter. And it says it's not found. Let's go back. It might be generating a new URL every time. So let's view page source. And here we go. Yeah, so every time you load the page, it generates a new admin endpoint. However, if we click on the new admin endpoint, you could see over here that there's no Carlos user, and so we've successfully completed the exercise. All right, so we completed the exercise by solving it manually first and then scripting the exploit in Python. In the next video, we'll look at a more complex broken access control vulnerability. If you liked the video, hit the subscribe and share button so that the video reaches a wider audience. Also, make sure to check out my course if you're interested in seeing more videos like this one. Thank you and see you in the next video.